Good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday evening, the evening before Thanksgiving here in the United States. I'm just doing what I always do with these live streams, which is to kind of give it a few seconds to do what it needs to do. Oh, there I am. And so that's always a good sign. And just making sure everything else is doing what it needs to do. But in the meantime, I think we are looking good. So, yes, it is Wednesday. Gosh, it's been so many interviews since back in May. On May 22nd is when I did my first virtual interview on the Alice tour, and I've been doing a lot during the breaks with the band, and then now I'm doing stuff on my own. And I think at some point we're going to be kind of coming back together and doing some interviews with them that we didn't get a chance to on the third leg back in October, but that's all kind of down the road. My name is Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts. I can't even introduce myself. Goodness. What I'd like to say is that coming up after Thanksgiving is that on Friday, we're going to try this again. Philip Johnson, who's an amazing photojournalist, used to be based here in Seattle and is now down in Texas. We're going to try to do his interview. This has been moved around, and it's not Phil's fault, and it's actually not my fault. It's been just a case where for his day job, he is a manager, and when employees can't make it in for various reasons, then he has to cover their shifts. So that's what's happened twice. So keep my fingers crossed that all his employees are healthy and make it into their shifts so that he doesn't have to go in on his day off. So that's going to be Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then on Saturday, the 28th, Sony Voodoo is going to be joining me as a part of my We Are All Creatives interview series, which just started last Friday, actually. So it's just only been a week. And that'll be at noon Pacific Standard Time. And Sony has the unique distinction of being the only guest that's been a part of my Fun Table sessions twice, but I have not done a formal interview with her. So I thought it was high time that we took care of that. And so some people would be like, they've already heard things from her and kind of know, but there's a lot of things that they don't know, including things that I'm not aware of yet. So I'm looking forward to that. So again, on Friday at 5 p.m., I've got a virtual interview set up. And then on Saturday at noon Pacific Standard Time, I've got one set up. And speaking of the fun tables, I do not have one scheduled for Friday with it being Black Friday. And granted, it's 2020 and everything, but I just figured it was a good time just to kind of take a break, just like everybody else is doing. So I will have my interview with Phil, hopefully, but there won't be a fun table later on that night. And whether they come back or not the following Friday in December kind of remains to be seen. I've already mentioned this depends on my schedule for my own day job, which is switching to night. And so I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet, but I would love to do them and continue doing them, but I'm just not sure what's going to be happening with my schedule yet. So if you keep following me on social media, then you'll know what the latest is. So, but let's get to today. My guest today is a longtime musician. As the lead guitarist of the Jet City rock band, the Adarna, she has performed worldwide for many years. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Andreka Jasek. Let's bring her in.
Hello,
Hi.
world.
How are we doing over there?
Another day in paradise on a Wednesday night.
Okay, and I've got a little technical thing that seems to be going on, which is only on my end. So let me working. Can I do a test real quick?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can. There we go.
Can you see me?
I can hear you. I can see you. Yeah. So people that were seeing the virtual streams that I did last Friday, for whatever reason, the first 30 seconds, only on my end, it'd be all jumbled up. So like I couldn't decipher anything. So I just kind of be like that. But thank you so much for taking the time to join me today on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. And let's see here. Hi, Industrial Girl. Nice to see you. And Tony, good to see you over on the East Coast. Hopefully both of you have a nice Thanksgiving tomorrow. There is some comments and things already going on in the chats, which is always nice. And so we've known of each other and been kind of talking loosely here and there about things. So it's really great that we finally virtually connected and we can talk about all kinds of different things tonight.
Yeah, it really took a pandemic, right, to make this happen.
Exactly. I know. It's been pretty nutty. It's been a pretty nutty year.
Sure.
And kind of speaking of which, so like how have things for you personally been, during this time in 2020, not about the band or anything else, but just for you personally?
Personally, it's been different. It's been a strange year, but also probably one of the best years that I've had in a very long time. It's just like there's no handbook for this, so I'm just trying to figure it out one day at a time, as everybody else is, I'm sure. But personally, I am doing well. Thank you for asking.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I love it when someone can say that this has been a good year for them.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into everything with the band and also with your background, just as a musician yourself and having like a guitarist for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just kind of curious about, can you take me back to your background? Because I believe you weren't originally from this area, but then you came here with your family.
Yeah, so I was born in Florida, but we left when I was not even one. So I grew up in West Seattle, lived in LA for a year, and then came back. But I would say I'm a diehard from White Center.
Okay, no, that's cool. That's one of the best things for me when I get a chance to talk to and interview artists that are from here, because sometimes even if I saw somebody live, I don't necessarily know, things like this that I'm finding out about somebody. You might just say things like pleasantries when you see them in person, but it's like I don't really know anything beyond that. So, right. So from White Center, I worked in West Seattle for a little bit off Delridge.
Yeah, that's a pretty close to it. Well, it depends on where you were, but opposite end of the Skylark, all the way down Delridge, that's good old White Center. It's still there, by the way, if anyone wants to roll through the hood. It's not so hood-like anymore, though.
That's cool. I used to, now that I think about it, the Adarna used to either end or start, it seems like a lot of your tours at the Skylark.
Everyone, well, I would say probably, 90% of them, we'd start there because we always get such a great response, a great crowd. The stage manager there, Brandon, he's amazing. He makes me feel like, I could play like Slash. So Skylark's been really good to us.
Awesome. I know Matt. The other side of things there at the Skylark, and of course when I was working out there, then I find myself down there for happy hour and for lunch and that kind of thing. And
I love that place.
Yeah, so do I. And I miss it. I haven't been there since the pandemic broke out for any kind of to go or sitting outside in those tables that they made in the back, and I just see it on social media. So I'm like, oh yeah, I wish I could get out there, but I'm just
It's hard to get out, and we probably shouldn't be going out, but at some point, I'm hoping they survive. I think they will, but you never know.
Yeah, for sure. I know it's interesting with some of the things. Like I know I saw that article about the crocodile, that they're going to be moving to a bigger space actually with everything else going on. But hopefully they're not the exception. I hope that becomes the rule, that the venues stick it out.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing somebody asked a question about, is that a Gretsch hollow body behind you? They're wanting the guitar.
This one?
Yeah, the one on the left there.
Yes, it is.
Oh, there you go, Industrial Girl. So she got that
backwards right. To me. Wait. Yeah, it is.
Nice. Well, let's kind of jump right into that, since you mentioned one of your guitars behind you. What got you into music way back when?
Well, so way back when I was actually a break dancer. So I wasn't good, but I was doing some breakdance moves. I was probably like 6 or 7. And then I was, hitting on things and singing. And my mom was like, I'm going to get you a keyboard. So she got me the shittiest Casio. And that was really the beginning. Then so I have an older brother, and he plays and played in a band. And when I was 11 or 12, he sent me a VHS. I don't know if there's some younger people out there who don't know what that is, but I got a VHS of his band, and I was like, oh my God, I want to play guitar. So my mom got me a Harmony, which, I don't know if anyone remembers Finger Hut. We got it on there. And so it was really my brother, who is to this day still my musical inspiration.
Oh, that's cool. And when you got that first guitar, were you taking lessons or self-taught or both?
So the first thing I did with that guitar was I got a strap for it, and I learned the James Hetfield stance before I ever even played it. So eventually, no, I didn't take lessons for probably 10 years into playing, which was hard because I taught myself so many bad habits and I had to go back and like relearn everything.
Yeah, no, I can actually relate to that. I took lessons, but my first teacher wasn't maybe the best teacher, so I developed some bad habits, and I had to unlearn them through my second teacher.
Yeah, I think unlearning and then relearning is harder than learning it right the first time.
Yes, I would agree with that. I so had wished that my first instructor had taught me the proper things to do, so I wouldn't have to sit there and tear my hair out, trying to make it, fix some mistakes and everything that I'd picked up. But so when you're playing guitar, and when did you just start jamming with people, or how did you get into like your first band situation?
So I got the guitar, and then I was like, oh no, I want to play bass. So I went and bought this shitty bass from a pawn shop in White Center, and I didn't even know how to tune these instruments. But in middle school, I was like, I really want a band because that seems really cool. So my friend at the time played drums. Let's remember, we didn't really play anything. But she played drums, and I was like, cool, we just need 2 other people. And that actually, in middle school, in 7th grade, was the first time I went on stage. We had a song with 2 parts in it, and we didn't know how to end it, really. So we played the 2 parts for 5 minutes, and we got booed off stage. Oh. It was awesome. And then we played it again at the second talent show and got booed off stage again. And I was like, fuck yeah, this is amazing. Like, I want to do this.
Wow, I thought when you said that when you played it, did the talent show the second time, that you're going to say that you got an opposite reaction, but you got.
Oh no, it was the same school. It was, so back then the school was very like, you either listen to rock or you listen to hip hop. Like you couldn't do both for some reason, and it was a very hip hop school, so we got booed off stage.
Oh, okay.
I kind of liked it in some weird way. I was like, well, I'll show you. I'm going to get really good then.
Okay, that makes sense. It kind of fueled your fire, kind of like, I'll show you kind of a thing. Okay. Because I guess it could go either that could be the direction, or it could be the other direction where you cry and go into the fetal position or something.
But like as far as a real band, it was in 9th grade. I was looking through the Rocket. I don't know if you remember the Rocket.
Mm-hmm.
It's like equivalent to the Stranger or Seattle Weekly, and I met LJ. And we formed a band. I was 14 or 15, and she was like 6 months older than me. She's still a great friend. But we started our first band called Liquor Box. And we were, it was a girl band with a male bass player, but we were just a shit show. But people came to just like watch the debauchery. That was my first real band.
Okay. And what give me like a timeline. So like what year was this roughly around?
This was 1999 to 2003.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you're doing that band, and you're kind of finding your way and just kind of having fun with it, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. And then so were there other bands between that one that eventually got you to the Adorna?
Many bands. I was a little bit of a band slut, but many bands. So the main bands that were for real life-changing for me was that band, Liquor Box, and my band after that, Homewrecker. That was the first band where it was like, okay, we got money, we got an investor, a label, we have to tour, like legit business stuff. And I was only 20 years old, and I thought I knew everything. I didn't know shit. So those bands, and then of course the Adorna. Okay,
so when you're getting this, label support and financial things, and and you're, like you said, you're 20 years old. How long did that last? What kind of things did you learn from that period?
Oh man, I learned very quickly that I knew nothing about music, the industry, any of that. And I also learned that when you're given money, it changes a lot of things. Mm-hmm. It can change friendships. It can change, your bandmates. So that was the biggest thing from that band. It was kind of like, okay, when money comes into play, we really need to start treating everything like a business.
That makes sense. I know, who was it? There was a band member that was talking about the exact same thing, that they were doing things locally, and then once they got into a situation where there was like advances and all these other kind of things and tour opportunities, it's like some band members kind of understood that they needed to kind of step up their game and understand that it's a business, and some people didn't, and it became issues within the band and all that kind of thing. And so how did things eventually go where you started the Adarna?
So when I lived in LA in 2008 and I played in a band there, that was awesome. It was a pop band, which is not my thing, but that was the hardest music to play, really, was pop. And then I came back to Seattle and I got a call from a manager of this band called Veritas. And they were like, you know, we need a guitar player. Do you want to come try out? So I joined that band, and Will was the singer of that band, and that's how we met. And then when that band imploded or exploded, we started the Adarna.
Okay. So with all of these bands that you've mentioned so far, and then now you're to this point where you meet Will and you start the Adarna. Were there points in there where you're ready to hang it up?
Oh yeah, absolutely, many times. So in between that band and the Adarna, I was like, I don't want to play music ever again, not in a band or any. I'll always play, right? I'll always like pick up a guitar or, you know, keyboard, whatever. But I was so done with the industry more than being in a band. I was over it. I tried to quit, lasted like 2 months. Then I was back at it.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. For me, and we were kind of talking about this pre-show, that sometimes you get to a point, and particularly in your case, you went through everything about the industry and you kind of realize that, you know, I'm just kind of done with all this shit. But then you're always going to be a musician and always going to be an artist. That's never going to be taken away from you. But
right.
And I know for the same thing for me, I never played to that level at all. I mean, I never played in a band that toured or anything like that, but did little stuff around town, and it was like even that got on my nerves after a while. And just dealing with, you know, people and dealing with your bandmate. And
it's a marriage. It's a 4 or 5 or however many people are in your band. It's a marriage with those people.
Yeah, very much so. And you find that out pretty quick when you're around them all the time.
When you're living in an RV or a bus, you know, it's you really got to learn how to communicate, and it's, unless you've been there, it's really hard for me to explain, because people ask like, oh, is it like a road trip with your family? No, not really. In a way, yes, but at the same time, it's everyone's an artist. You know what I mean? It's just, it's its own thing for sure.
Yeah, and again, even for me, I don't know exactly what it's like you do. I only know from being around bands, or, you know, being on tour buses and interviewing bands and just kind of getting that vibe from them about, oh, we can't wait for the tour to be done because maybe it wasn't a really good tour, or things happened during that tour. And sometimes it's the other way around. There's totally jacked up and can't wait because things are going great, and you know, the album's doing well and the shows have been selling well. Just can't ever tell. And I remember there was one band who I'm not going to name, but when they got here, they had a different drummer. I was kind of like, what happened to so-and-so? And they're like, we're not going to talk about it. It's like, oh, geez.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
You know, the average, I heard the average lifespan for a local band is 2 years. Did you know that? I think that's pretty crazy. I mean, it makes sense, but that's 2 years. You barely know your bandmates.
Yeah, dang. Well, yeah, I guess I could see that though, like you were saying, because in 2 years, that depending on what people's like priorities are, then it could pull things away really quick. And I understand, like, if you have a family or your whatever your day job is kind of thing, maybe you're like, I'm just kind of tired. You know, I love being a musician, but I don't want to go back out on the road and, you know, not getting to sleep and, you know, driving everywhere and, you know, lugging gear.
Hard. It's definitely hard.
Yeah. One of the people in the chat was asking, what was the name of the band in LA again?
At the time, it was Waiting for Wyatt, and they changed their name to Evo Love.
There we go. And hi, Captain Blackwood. Good to see you too. Who's also here in the chat, in the comments. I was so bad about this early on when people would be in here and they're saying things. I would just be like, almost like ignoring them and just sticking to.
I got kind of scared when you're like, there's comments. I'm like, oh no, because I can't see them. I was like, oh God, what's going on there?
Oh, you know what? If you look, probably depending on the kind of device you're on, if you look to your right, there might be a tab that says comments on the top, and they'll kind of come through.
No.
No, not a problem. They're all nice comments, so that's
So far.
yeah, that's always a good thing. One thing that I think probably the first time I even came across the Adorno was that you guys have been playing overseas, which is unusual. You played for the troops. You played all over the place. So can you kind of speak to some of those things that the band has done over the years?
Oh yeah. So we learned very quickly. I mean, the industry it's changing constantly, and it absolutely started changing late 90s, early 2000s. And if you wanted to do anything, you had to do it yourself. I mean, not just musicianship. It's like you got to figure out what you're going to take on tour and who's going to book the shows and do the merch and accounting, like everything. So we were like, okay, we can tour the US, no problem, do it all the time. How can we get out of the country? Because, you know, rock bands are received very differently out of the country than they are here. So we started thinking about it, and we're like, well, we have this, we want to go play for the troops. We want to be there and kind of entertain them and stuff. And we applied and applied and applied, and they're like, no, 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 for years. And then finally they're like, do you want to do this? And we we're like, oh yeah, absolutely. So they asked us to write a song about that, like something related to the military or, you know, something. So that's the song Firefight. We wrote that, and they were like, yes, this is awesome. So we got to go overseas. You learn a lot about your bandmates then too. Living in a plane and being like, just because we had security, it changed my life. That experience for sure changed my life.
Wow. Where did they send you? Where were you playing?
So we played in Djibouti, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and somewhere else I can't remember, but it was awesome.
Okay. And
we were supposed to do it again, and then all this crazy stuff happened.
Yeah, I don't know how many times with the different interviews I've done when the guests, and one of them, they're literally on the road ready to go to the first venue here in the States, and then they got the call from the manager, tour's canceled, every club's closed, go back home, get on your planes, fly back to where you're supposed to go. And they kept thinking, oh, we'll be back out here in a couple months. Here we are in November.
Yeah, I don't think any shows are going to happen for a while, unfortunately. Yeah. I don't know, but I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm in agreement with you. There's too many factors going on right now that are like and too many variables that aren't even lining up, even just here in the U.S.
I know.
So like if you say you were able to tour, here in Washington, and then you went over to Idaho or something, and maybe they got different, restrictions or non-restrictions there. Mm-hmm. That means you have to skip maybe that state and go to another state, go to Montana or something, and that you can't sustain that. It doesn't work. That you can't just kind of pick and choose where you're going to go. It's like, no, we have to have shows every day and have that income coming in. Otherwise,
you have to make money if you're going to tour. You have to, absolutely. Otherwise, you're going to be sleeping in your vehicle at a truck stop until someone feels sorry for you and gives you enough gas to come home.
Yeah, that actually brings up an interesting point that I'm sure you've got some interesting road stories from all the time you've been on the road. Is there anything that you can actually share with the audience here today?
Oh man, wow. Well, something that's interesting to one person may not be interesting to another person. So what do we mean by interesting?
Let's say it's interesting to you. Forget about the audience part of it. Just something that sticks out in your head when I mention this.
Okay. In general, what's interesting to me when the Adorno started touring, I was thinking, okay, we're gonna do great in these bigger cities, and we do okay, but the outskirts of all these bigger cities love it, and I never in a million years would have guessed that. So I found that to be really interesting. I know it's not a biting the head off a bat kind of, story, or we trashed the hotel room, but that is actually interesting. And I did trash a hotel room once, but not in the Adarna. There, I said it.
Yeah, no, that's cool because, and I love hearing those kind of things because again, I've never been on the road, so I have no idea. So I love hearing people's perspectives from their various bands and things that they've done. And I see Andreka is one of the coolest people I've ever known. Amazing in concert. Have her tattooed on my arm autograph. That's from Mel McAllister.
That was one of my most interesting stories too, but I didn't know if she'd be okay with me telling it. It was in Tennessee, I believe. We were on tour with Hinder last year, and she's a huge fan of music, which is always cool to meet people like that. And I signed her arm. She's like, "I'm gonna get that tattoo," and I was like, "Sure you are," and she did, which is awesome.
Wow, yeah, no, that's gotta be really awesome to see someone that does any kind of tattooed work of.
Oh yeah, that's not a boyfriend.
Yeah. Somebody earlier in the chat was asking them when the band was over in Kuwait, was that nerve-wracking at all? Being over there in the war zone.
Yeah. I felt safe, because we had our military protecting us, but for me, it was very different. There were a lot of things I couldn't do, couldn't wear, couldn't say. So I really had to learn about the culture very quickly.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And I know this is kind of a little side note. I remember watching, I want to say it was Digital Tour Bus that was talking about your bus that was how it was converted. Is that still the, obviously pre-pandemic, is that still the bus and the vehicle that you guys tour in?
Oh yeah, that's Wendy. That's our bus, Wendy. That's Home Away from Home.
Okay. And so did you get to a point where were you doing like the 15 passenger vans and the sprinters and decided we're going to do the school bus, or what happened?
Oh dude, yeah, we did so many of those, and we were like, we cannot go on month-long tours like this because you have to be able to stand up and you have to be able to move around. And a couple of us work from the road, or like I'm in school, so I do schoolwork from the road. We needed a table, we need to sleep. So we got that bus and took the seats out and completely just made it our home.
Yeah, for anyone that hasn't seen it, go onto YouTube and look at Digital Tour Bus on the Adarna, and you'll see that thing come out. Because I remember I watched that, and I was really amazed at the ingenuity of what went into making that thing workable for you guys as a band.
On the cheap too.
Interesting.
And we got to pay for recording and stuff. So, and merch, we got to be cheap. So not cheap. We got to be thrifty.
Yeah, you have to do more with less.
Exactly. And the Adarna knows how to do that for sure.
Well, and another thing that I saw with the band is that you've been so interesting with the Adarna is that it's not like, yes, you're on tour, yes, you play shows, but then you also played overseas for the military, but you've also been playing conventions too. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to that, please?
Oh, that's a whole other world. Like, it's amazing. And we meet all these kids who are just, that's their place. They go there to be themselves. It's a safe place for them to kind of get out of their shell a little bit. And we've been playing, there's a PsychoCon, it's called, on the East Coast. We've been playing that for like 5 years in a row. And we meet these kids, 5 years ago we meet them and they're 10 years old. And then we see them again 5 years later and they're like almost driving and growing up. It's amazing. And it's cool to see how they get along and just like really, really come out of their shells.
That's cool. I again, in another lifetime, I used to work as a teacher. So
Okay.
Yeah, I've had that. I've been fortunate that some of my former students I've actually been able to run into, later in life, and well, one, not recognize them because they're 6'2" or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Just everything's changed. But like, you don't recognize me, and their voice has changed and everything.
Yeah.
That's awesome that the band plays conventions like that, and then, like you said, getting a chance to see a fan 5 years ago who was 10 or 11 years old, and then they come back to the convention every year, and you see them kind of go through all those changes and stages, and
Mm-hmm.
and see the positivity that happens. That's awesome.
And it was actually that convention, like, I fainted on stage once, not in this band. I've thrown up on stage, whatever. this one time I almost cried on stage because we were playing at that convention and like the power went out for some reason. And all these kids in their costumes were like singing the song back to us. So there were no amps, no nothing, just the drums. And they were like singing and brought out their cell phones. And I was like, oh my God, I can't cry. I'm in a band. But it just like, it was amazing. And it's the stuff like that where it's very inspiring to keep wanting to do this.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine that's going to get you, right in the heartstrings, and that what's, at least from the little bit I've been able to tell when I do the stuff that I do for media, is that when things like that happen, it makes everything worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So with the band, I know that you guys did. I want to say that was probably early spring. You did a live stream early on during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so where are things now? Are you kind of doing like what a lot of bands are, where they're just trying to work on ideas because they can't really, they can't tour or anything? But where are things at right now with the band?
Well, we never stop working. We're always doing something. Right now, we are. We got a new practice space and a new studio, and we're writing. We're getting ready to record the next album, which will hopefully be out next year. Just kind of, honing our skills and always planning the next thing, the next adventure.
Okay, that kind of sounds like Alice. They're also DIY, and they never stop. There's always something going on.
Because if you stop, there's another band out there that won't.
Very good point. I've talked about that with other people. Like, if you're not putting in the time yourself, and you kind of don't take a look around you, someone's just going right past it. It doesn't even have to be the same thing that you're doing, but if they have that, that drive, they'll keep going, and then you'll kind of be left in the dust eventually. One thing that I was interested in is that, have you had any issues over the years where someone was looking at you and saying, "Oh, it's a female guitarist," and they're kind of like, giving you the bullshit that tends to unfortunately come sometimes when they see somebody who's female on stage playing, especially in a rock band?
Yeah. So in a lot of interviews, it's like, what's it like being a girl in band, right? So I've always been a girl. I've always been in a band. That's what I know. So I don't even know how to answer that. But there is a lot of bullshit that does go with it. And I used to get mad when people would, ask that question. But now it's like, okay, there are all these girls, like this next generation of guitarists and bands coming up. It's better now, but when I started, it was definitely like, you need to dress like this, or you need to look like that, or, we got to sell more units. It's all about selling the units. Or I'll read a review and it's like, oh yeah, the only reason she's in the band is because she's a chick, or just horrible things. But it is getting better. I don't think it's anywhere near as, it's not to the point where we don't need to talk about it anymore. So the bullshit is still there. But you kind of have to just take it and turn it into something positive within yourself and just not let it get to you. And it does suck. It's like, why is that a thing?
Yeah, no, the interviews I've been doing since 2011, it's really unfortunate hearing things about like, oh, it's a female fronted band.
Oh, so, no.
Like, she's the singer in the band. You're the lead guitarist in the Adarna.
Oh, and a lot of times, we go somewhere new, and if there's not a poster up or a picture of the band, a lot of times it's like, whose girlfriend are you? Are you the merch girl? It's like, not that there's anything wrong with that. Absolutely not. But it's like, why do you have to assume that?
Exactly.
Because no one asks, like, what's it like, being a guy in a band? That doesn't cross anyone's mind.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And some of the artists that I've talked to over the years, it's like you're saying, it's getting better. And they also realize that, especially when they meet their fan base, that there's young girls that are inspired by them. Yep. So I'm sure you've probably talked to many, many fans over the years that maybe happen to be female, and they're like, I want to do what you do. And, so I know if I see you doing it, that means I can also do it too.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so since you've been doing things for such a long time, do you ever work on anything just like even just for fun on your own that maybe wouldn't fit the Adornus, almost like it would be like an eventual, I don't know, solo project or something?
Yeah, I actually have a side project band with my boyfriend. We're called Sex Hair. And
Oh,
we're gonna play really chill, like calming music, and then at the very end, we're gonna smash our guitars.
that sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
other than that, no, not really. I mean, for a while I was writing beats, like hip hop beats,
Uh-huh.
but I haven't had time to do that lately.
Okay. And so when you're not working on any type of music for yourself or for anyone else, what other kind of things do you like to do?
I like cuddling my cat, and I have been playing Rocket League. Do you know Rocket League?
No, I don't.
So I'm playing it on PlayStation, and it's this video game where it's kind of like soccer, but you're in a car. So that's kind of my thing is Rocket League, and I almost wasn't gonna say it, but I'm really proud of it.
Okay.
I'm getting kind of good, so.
Well, there's quite a few people in here that are gamers in the chat right now. So
I am not a gamer. I can barely play. I'm better than I was, but I wouldn't consider myself a gamer yet.
okay, that's cool. Yeah, see, someone saying I've heard of that. So that's awesome. And we definitely have people that love pets in the chat as well. Some of the folks that I see right now. Cats for the win. That's one of the comments.
Yeah, I love my cat.
Awesome. So what kind of advice would you give an up and coming musician?
Take lessons. Definitely practice to a metronome, even though it sucks, and always play with people better than you. Play with people that are so much better than you that you feel like you suck and you want to give it up.
Wow. That's really great advice. And that's actually advice that I have not heard from the 96 other guests that I've had. That's awesome. I love that part, particularly about playing with people that are better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's gonna drive you. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna that if they're up here and you feel like shit, I got a lot of work to do to get to
Yeah.
where.
Because you do pick up, the habits and everything, the style of people around you. So if you're playing with people who are way better than you, you're going to start to pick that up.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. I'll definitely have to remember that. Well, I don't know if I'm ever going to be working with anybody musically again.
You're a great guitarist.
Oh, thanks. I was actually noodling around with it before I got on here to do things just because I felt like it. And it's the same guitar that was in that video that I just put up on Instagram. That stuff's from I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago.
Or the Flying Bee.
My old Iron Bird, my own BC.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at it over there. And before we kind of wrap this up, gear-wise, I do see obviously the guitars on your wall behind you. Are there certain things from your gears, your guitars, your amps, effects, that type of thing that you really love to work with right now? The things that are really kind of floating your boat.
Yeah. So this SG,
Mm-hmm.
that's my baby. And what's weird is I've had the same guitar strap since 2000, and I can't play without it. So that thing it's always there. But as far as sounds and technical stuff, last year I just picked up a Head Rush, which is the pedal that's like a supercomputer. So I've been messing with that. There are millions of things in it, so I'm still learning. But that thing is going to be a game changer for me.
Awesome. And yeah, so that's interesting that you have that same strap since 2000.
Yeah, and I'm like, what's going to happen when it finally? Because I've sewn it and taped it. Like, what's going to happen when it finally dies? Is that the end of my career?
Well, hopefully not. It might be a sad day.
It will be a very sad day.
And is it a leather strap? Is it a nylon strap?
It's like fake leather, and it has a couple of pink stars that I painted on there, and it's all falling apart. But I love that thing. I don't know what it is. Like, I get anxiety if something happens and I have to play on stage with another strap. It's just not good.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose that makes sense because I'm looking at that strap. That actually, the strap that's on my Ironbird came from my other guitar. So I guess
Yeah. Yeah, I just switched straps on my guitar, or I switched guitars with the same straps. I have those locking, the strap locks.
Yeah, no, I guess that really isn't that odd when I think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, Andreka, it was awesome getting a chance to talk to you and
Like,
finally meet you, and everybody that was here in the chat that's watching across the platforms. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope that you all have well, hopefully a safe and somewhat fun Thanksgiving tomorrow. In this crazy 2020 year version of it, and maybe next year at this time we'll kind of go back to what we kind of know. Hopefully, fingers crossed, kind of a thing. But yeah, Andreka, I'm going to keep following what you do, and I think it's so awesome.
Thank you for having me. This was a really great opportunity to get to know you.
Thank you. And again, I think it's awesome that you've been doing this for so long, and you really are like a pioneer. Because I even think about that in this area. I cover a lot of like singer-songwriters and folks and that kind of thing. But when it comes to like rock and roll stuff, there's bands around here, but you guys have been doing it for a while, and I think that's why you really stood out to me.
Yeah, we've been around.
Yeah, so
around the block.
More power to the band and to yourself. I hope that you continue to stay safe and have a nice Thanksgiving tomorrow. And hopefully I can talk to you sooner than later.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care, everybody.